Hey there everyone, Hitesh here, back again with another video, and in this video, we're going to be talking about NPM. Yes, I know, you have been using NPM for a while, and most of you already are aware of it, that it is being used to create some files and a whole bunch of other things. In this video, we're going to answer the in-depth about the NPM. It's a really short topic, so you're going to be loving it absolutely, and we will be answering the question about why, what, and how of NPM. I'll also introduce you that how you can keep a track of what's coming up new in NPM and how that can be advantageous for you and for your workflow. So without a further ado, let's get started with the NPM. First and foremost, it's very important to know that NPM solves a very big problem that we are going to see in a second. First and foremost, do you have NPM installed? Now, in the recent days or recent few years, you might have noticed that JavaScript is gaining a whole lot of popularity. One of the reasons is NPM, and NPM comes as a default if you install Node.js. So the easiest way of doing it, if I just open up my terminal, let me go ahead and try that. And there we go, here is my terminal. And if I just simply install Node, and it doesn't matter from what resource you are installing Node, through brew or by just double clicking the exe, however you are doing it, the chances are high that if the node is installed in your system, you can check it by node space -v. You can also check your NPM by saying npm-v. And as of now, the current almost latest-ish release is 16.14.4. We're going to talk about these as well, and we'll talk specifically about the version 6 in a minute. But right now, we know this, that NPM is installed in our system. If yours is not installed, just go ahead and install the node. It will come up as a default for you. Now let's move on to the point where I want to talk about NPM. NPM stands for Node Package Manager. So in most of the Linux-based system and even in the Mac-based system, we always use a little bit of the package manager. Somebody has written some code on the other side, and if we want to use or install that code, we have these package manager in almost every single languages. Ruby has got it. Python, you might be having the knowledge about the pip install and a whole bunch of other things. Mac users, you might be using brew install something. Windows users, we tend to use chocolatey install something. So this is pretty common, and that's what NPM does. Let's talk about what is the problem that NPM is trying to solve and why even it came in existence. So answering the why of the question. Let's just say we have a simple scenario that we want to save a user with unique ID in some file. This is not a database, this is just a file, and I want to have every single user a unique ID. So can you generate a unique ID? Yes, of course, you can. I have no doubt in that. In fact, almost every programmer can generate a unique ID, which can be a combination of strings and some numbers, and we can do it pretty easily. But is it going to be always foolproof? No, it's not gonna be. We have to work a little bit more to make it that those unique ID doesn't repeat itself. We surely can do it, but it's gonna require a little bit of more work. But instead, what many times we do, in fact, majority of time we do, is we try to use the code which somebody else has written, and we can bring that code in and can make our life much more easier. Remember, in the programming world, whenever a project is being designed, it's not like you'll be writing every single code from scratch. We rarely do. We try to tend to use code written by somebody else and take advantage of that, or even modify that according to our need. So one such example is here. There is a package known as UUID, very famous. It has been written by somebody else, and within just 2 lines of code, I can generate this marvelously beautiful unique string, which is always going to be unique. And not only that, this is a well-established package which uses a unique algorithm which is going to always generate a unique ID for you. So that's one advantage of it. Now, while designing such packages, there were 2 options in front of programmer. First and foremost, somebody has written that code. You can download it from his GitHub, fork it, however you like to do it, and then you can configure it. You have to place every single file at exact same place. All of them needs to be nicely placed and utilized. Or the second option, set a normal standard that every programmer has to follow if he wants to design anything in the NPM, and then anybody just can say npm install and the name of package. Of course, we know that the second option is much more easier. Just follow some of the standards while designing such products, and then anybody can say npm install UUID, npm install XYZ, whatever that is, and we can then use it. And then these just 2 lines of code can actually do all of these stuff. So why don't we actually go ahead and try a little bit hands-on on the things that how things are going on. So let's move on to that. So first and foremost, I would like you to just open up any of the code editor that you are having. I'm using VS Code. Just create an empty folder and drag and drop this folder here. Now my folder name here is LCO NPM, and feel free to have any of that. I'll be using the built-in code editor in the VS Code to give you and explain you some of the stuff here. Now first and foremost, we have already seen that npm-v gives me the version of the NPM, the latest one. But also you're going to notice that the help command is also available, just like it is available in almost every single Linux. But the problem is the help command in NPM is not really great. I don't recommend it to use it here. Rather, refer to the docs. They are much more easier and usable. So let's skip this one here. Now, one of the most common thing or the most initial thing we do with the NPM is write the command npm init. Now this creates a file, and this is moreover an initialization and telling our entire program or the product that we want to design that, hey, I will be using some of the third-party things and you might want to really have it up here. As soon as I hit enter, this is going to say a whole bunch of things, blah, blah stuff. And then it says, hey, what should be the package name? Now the default package name is your folder name. So make sure when this file is being created, the name matches with your folder name. I can hit enter to accept the default, or I can mention the package name that I want to have it. I'm going to hit enter as of now. Now here comes the version, which is 1.0.0. Now NPM uses a special type of versioning of any packages. Even NPM follows that, and we need to discuss a little bit. So I'll come back here in a second. But first, let's talk a little bit about how the things are going on. NPM follows and strictly follows a sem-ver or semantic versioning of how they are going to be releasing the packages. And of course, make sure you remember this. This is semantic versioning. It's been quite popular in the software domain. So this is a chart that is directly from the NPM docs, and there they have mentioned that how actually we version any of the software or even the NPM release. If it is the first release of the product, we always like to call it as 1.0.0. And that's the first thing. Now, eventually, if even your application that you are designing, it's going to see for the very first time the light of the day, it is recommended that you follow these rules. Now, these numbers are comprised of 3 units separated by decimals, and all of these are numbers. Now, if they are releasing even a simple minor release, also known as patch release, which is just some of the bug fixes, very minor issues and stuff like that, then the third digit is usually increased. And you can see here the number is being changed to 1.0.1. So for minor releases, the third digit get increases. And for the patch releases, my bad. And for the minor releases, these are very small features, definitely cannot be counted into the category of just a bug fix. Very minor release, but there is nothing like exciting or groundbreaking. Then we increment the number in the middle here. And if there is something that you have done drastic changes, which might even break the compatibility from the previous version, then we call it as major release, and then the software moves on to the 2.2.2. Again, a quick revision. If it is just a minor bug fixes, the last digit changes out. If these are decent kind of a minor release, it's not going to break anything from the past, then it's the middle one that's get updated, and finally we get updated here. So there you go. Now you know that how the NPM sem-ver or semantic versioning works. Let's go back up here and talk more on that. Since this is my very first version of the application, I'm going to hit enter here. Now in the part of description, you can make a decent 1 or 2 lines of description that what this package or what this product is going to do. Is it going to generate random strings? Is it going to just fire a request to the web? Whatever that is, that should be mentioned here. So we're going to say here, an app to learn NPM. I'm going to hit enter. Now what is the entry point? Right now it says index.js. If you remember, in the early days when you were programming in C or C++, we always used to create a main method there that we used to call as this is the entry point of a program. Every single program is divided into multiple files, and they all need a single entry point from where the software can start. This is exactly that thing. And it is not compulsory that you should call it always index.js. By the way, that's the default. But you can also call it as app.js, me.js, hitesh.js, lco.js. Feel free to call it anything. but it's a good idea that you follow some good practice and call it either app.js or index.js. I'll keep it as index.js as of now. Then comes up to the test command. We will be modifying some of the test commands, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Right now, I want to keep it as a default. Then it says Git repository. Now, obviously, if you're creating a big scale software, you might want to keep a check of all the versioning of the software. So usually we keep a Git repository here that where I will push all the codes and keep the track of all the changes that I'm making. This is what it is being used for. After that, some of the keywords. These are some internal companies work that they like to put some of the keywords. Hey, this is based most on login systems, or I'm using auth0 or something that. There we use the keywords. Author, you can definitely put up your name, and I'll talk more about these authors and a whole bunch of other things in a minute. And then a license, again, there can be a separate video about licensing. As of now, I'm going to accept the default ISC license, and then it says, it gives me a summary that this is all entirety of the file that I'm about to create for you. Are you all happy with this? You can hit accept the default, which is yes, and hit enter. As soon as you do this, a new package.json file is being created for you. This file lists out the exact information that we have got. Notice here one interesting thing. There are some scripts being created for you. Right now it says test, but we are going to modify that in a minute. Okay, looks great so far. Now it is expecting that there would be a file which is going to be index.js, and you can write all of your code. But later on you realize that, you know what, I don't want to call it as index.js. I will call it as main.js. You can just go ahead, change it up here, save that, and that's it. Now it's going to look up for the main.js file to make it an entry point. Okay. Now, before we move forward, I would also like to talk a bit about some more things which are going to be helpful. You usually don't need to know about this, but just in case, I'm going to tell you that anyway. Now, there are some configurations in the NPM that you can do, and these are global configurations. I usually don't touch it even because I record a lot of videos and I want everything to be default. But if you just say npm and say config and hit enter, this is going to give you an error. But the error is important to have it because it shows us all the command possible that we can have it here. So for example, I can use the command npm config set, and I can pass on a key and a value to set anything as a global value. Similarly, I can use a delete, or I can use a list to get whatever the things are. So for example, if I just say npm config list, it gives me that, hey, these are all the default information. Remember when we were creating npm init, it was giving us some default information like what license type and all those stuffs. These are being set up in the global configuration. I'll show you one how to edit that, and then I'll remove that because I usually keep everything as default because I record a lot of videos. Okay, so how do we do that? We simply say npm set, and then you are configuring for initialized file. So we're going to say init.author.email. So this is the file that I want to change. And what is the value that you want to change it up here? The value is going to be simply example-user@gmail.com. So this is the one that I am having it here. I'm going to hit enter, and that is being changed. Now in the similar way, you can say init.author.name. I just said it for email because I rarely change any of this. That's why I'm showing you. Now if I run the command of npm config list, it shows me that now there is a default configuration with the key email and the password, this big stuff. And this is going to be used now. And this is the user configuration file location even mentioned to you as well. Okay. Now I really don't like this thing to go up there. So that's why I would love to delete it. And again, if you're forgetting any of the command, you can just hit npm config and see all of that in the error here. So see here, npm config delete. And by the way, I just used the command npm set. I missed the config. It's not really necessary, but I recommend to use it. That's a good practice. So now I want to delete, and I have to mention the key. So I'm going to simply go ahead and see this one. So I just have to mention the key. I don't need to mention the value. So I'll delete this one, and I'll say npm config delete. And at the time of deleting, the config keyword is necessary. You need to mention that. Set and get will work, but delete needs the config. I'm going to hit enter, and we'll check my list again, and I'll see that that guy is all gone. Usually in 90% of the case, you'll never come back here, but just wanted to mention that these things are necessary. Okay, moving forward to our presentation. So you have loved this, you have enjoyed it. Now it's time we get a little bit on hands-on versioning so that we can talk more about the latest version of NPM, which is 6, and how we can study more about it. So the first package that I'm going to introduce you to is, again, UUID. And you can see the weekly downloads here. This is not just a number, this is an insane high number. So this package is pretty popular. They tell you that you can install any of the packages by saying npm install and UUID. And they also refer you some of the things that how you can use it. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Now I'm going to just say, copy this npm install UUID. And now we will get a lot more things that we can discuss here. First and foremost, I want to show you that how this entire package.json is going to change. And there are going to be some new files that are going to be generated, and we need to discuss about them. So let's go ahead and npm install UUID. Once I do this, see, this is a very small file. And first and foremost, there is a new key value pair that comes up as a dependencies. And this requires you to have an object inside it and then key value pairs. It said UUID, and this UUID version got installed in my system. Just onto a side note, if you want to uninstall anything, all you have to do is, let me move that. All you have to do is say npm uninstall UUID, and there you go, it's going to be removed. But I want it right now. So I'm going to say npm install. Quite a fun to do that. Okay. Now, as soon as I do this, I'll talk about rest of the things a little bit later, just onto a sidetrack, very small sidetrack. We have seen the package.json file was there, but as soon as I install something new, two new things comes in. The node module folder, it is pretty expected that node module folder will include all the packages and files that are required to UUID to work on. And we have version 1, and we have got a version 2, 3, 4, and a whole bunch of other things that are coming up there. There's a lot of detail in the code that you can go ahead and check out, that how they are using MD5s and cryptos, and even you can see the entirety of the code. Not interested in to go there. We just got confirmation that yes, all the code from that is required to generate a unique key in the UUID is available in node module. And there's a lot of other things too. But what about this package.lock.json file? If I check this file, this looks almost exactly same as package.json, but this is more verbose. Here I can see that the UUID is just saying the version, but this one says that this is the version number, resolved, and integrity, and a whole bunch of other things. Also, notice here the version number is exact here, but in this case there is some this tilde sign going, not tilde, this caret sign actually is going on. So what is this whole thing going on? Let me explain that as well. The package.json package-lock.json file was introduced in the version 5 of the NPM, and this file actually does mainly two things, definitely more things, but mainly two things. The first thing is when we install or put our app in the production stage, then we need a dependency tree to find out which version or which UUID or nodemon or what are the other packages that you need to be installed in what proper order. Also, it also requires you to give exact number of the package that you need, not any slightly modified version, exact number. Plus, we also want to see if it is the package that was meant to be installed, and that's what integrity does here. Okay. And another thing is this log file helps you to do kind of a time machine kind of a thing where you can go back and forth into the versioning. Now, definitely, there's a lot of debate that's going on about the package-lock.json and how sometimes it introduces bug and sometimes you need to delete it and reinstall the stuff. But I think we will go a bit of sidetrack of debating about the package.json. So just understand, it is used for the production. It is very necessary. It is recommended that you push this file too in your Git so that at the time of production, things can be much more easier. So that's all you need right now to know about it. Now let's talk a bit about these versioning system. This is very important, and that's the meat and heart of the entire NPM. Here we see the exact package number, and here we are seeing some caret sign, and there are more signs here. And to understand them, we need to go back here. And we'll be printing these stuffs as well, but first let's go back to our presentation and see what things are going on. So in the NPM, we just saw that we have installed the UUID with a caret sign 7.0.3. There are more signs just like this, and we need to understand them through this table. When I say something like caret 7.0.3, then it will install 7.1.3. What does that mean? Remember, the last number means you can update any of the patches. The middle number says upgrade anything, but don't change the version. But if there is any new feature, minor feature, which is not gonna break, just install that. This caret sign means get me the latest of the UUID, but please don't change the version from 7 to 8. Whatever the latest is, just give me that. This caret sign actually denotes that. There is also a tilde sign which is being used sometimes by a developer. The tilde sign means I'm not even interested in changing the middle value. I don't want to see any of the additional feature, just give me exact. But if there is any security patch or a bug fix, I want that. So instead of 7.0.3, this is going to install 7.0.5 if that is available. These are all fictitious number, except this is real, but all of them I've just made them up. Now there is also sometimes some people says that, hey, I want to install UUID with an asterisk. The most dangerous feature. This means get me whatever the latest version of it. And chances are high that you will break your application with this because there are some feature in 7.0.3 and things will break in 8.0.0 and you are installing that breakage version. So this asterisk is the most dangerous thing you can play around. And there is also without asterisk or without caret, just say 7.0.3, which says, hey, you know what? I really don't care about any upgradation or any patch release automatic. Give me just the exact number what I'm saying. And that is the reason why I'm saying that this package.lock.json file always is used in production because these things are production level things. So it's actually my recommendation to use that in the production or push them in the Git. Okay. Anyways, so now we have now gone through and worked with the UUID and we have seen that. Now it's time that we create a small file. I'll create a main.js and we'll try to run this file. So I'm going to just go ahead and create a main.js. There we go. How should I use that? Again, usually I talk about that in my documentation, but here I can say that we can just use these two lines and can generate this one. So if I just copy this and I can write all of my code and just go for that. In fact, I can store that into a variable or something like that. So if I just say, hey, this is going to be my UUID, that's going to be equal to UUID4, and then I can go ahead and say I'm going to do a console log of my UID. There we go. I really don't want to make this tutorial very code specific. That's why I'm not going to be writing any code here, but this is how you actually write your basic code if you want to use any of the packages just like here. As of now, I'm going to just remove this because I don't want any console log or anything. If you want, you can have it. I want to keep this NPM tutorial only dedicated for NPM. Okay, so now we have learned about this. Now there is a couple of more things I want to discuss in this bit of a long video. Another package that you're going to see, or another type of packages that you're going to see, is something like NodeMon. The first package that we have seen is helpful for our application, for its functionality. But there are sometimes packages which makes developer life easier. And you're going to see NodeMon is one such package. Although here on the installation that says npm install NodeMon, and sometimes I even do that, but that's not actually the recommended way of doing it. You should be using a command which is something like this. Now don't worry about this as well. I'll talk about that in a second. But right now, this is how you should actually be installing the NodeMon. And it gives us a new flag here which says --save-dev. What is this? NPM also allows you to have some of the development dependencies that are absolutely meant to make developer life easier. These dependencies never goes into the production or actual websites. So let's go ahead and try that as well. I'm going to just go ahead and shrink it up and now closely look at the package.json file. Right now I'm having dependency, but once I say that I want to install NodeMon, but I'm putting a flag of --save-dev, it creates another key value pair for me. And this time the name is little different. It says dev dependencies, aka development dependencies, has nothing to do with the application. And here I can use it. So that's the one thing. Now, another thing that you're going to notice here that sometimes there are some scripts being given to you. Now, there is a lot that you can do with the NPM to automatically even run your application for produce a production grade output of the application, maybe run off some of the test scripts as well if you want to. The most common one is sometimes people run some of the start script as well. So this is my start script, and every time if I want to run this application right now, I have to say node, oops, again, node, and then the file name, which is main.js. I have to run this application like this. But I can use NPM and say start, and then here I can specify my run command for this. In this case, this is node and main.js. And then after that, I can simply say, hey, NPM, please help me. NPM start. And you might be thinking, why would I do that? It's almost exactly time consuming, same as I'm writing node and then the file name. Now, in this case, you are actually right here, but sometimes how you run your application, it requires a big, long, gigantic command. It might be first running some of the test scripts, then everything goes right, and then I run this. In that case, these start scripts can be really lifesaver. And sometimes, even you might have watched that in my MERN course or other courses, that I use nodemon to keep it automatically running, and I say nodemon and then the file name. And it doesn't really matter if I'm using nodemon or node, I just always say npm start. And definitely, there's a whole lot that we can do here. Applications like React comes up with some of the built-in commands that says npm run build, npm run production grade, and a whole bunch of other things. Don't want to go too much in depth, but just to mention that yes, these kinds of things are done in this script flag, and these are pretty helpful as well. Okay, so we have talked about that we have dependencies which are for our application. These are dependencies for our help as a developer, but there's one more type of thing, and promise this is the second last topic. There's one more type of NPM packages that you can install, and these are known as global packages. And here we can see that you can install nodemon globally too, but I rarely does that. I rarely do that. Not does. Yeah, come on. Okay. I rarely do install nodemon as a global package. I rather like to install things like Angular or React as a global package. If you'll go to the Angular installation, they say that, hey, you can run command npm install -g, that means a global install. And what it will does, it is going to give you an ng, new, and my app. Basically, it will give you an ng as a default command, which you can run from anywhere on your system and can generate a new Angular project. Now, this is just an example. There's a whole lot of things that are going on. Okay. So we can see that there's a whole lot of things that you can do with the NPM. Oops, not like that. There's a whole lot of things that you can do with the NPM. Right now it just says NPM run, NPM start, NPM init, and a whole bunch of things. Eventually, as the packages do get updated of the NPM, it introduces you to new commands as well. And there is a whole lot of documentation that you can read. Moving on to the point where I would like to introduce that NPM also rolls out versions of it. 5 version did a lot of great job. It removed the flag like --save. We can now directly say npm install this, automatically makes an entry in the package.json file. Previously, we had to manually do that, but now things are getting all better side. In the version 6, they mainly focused on the security issues as well as CI and CD issues. If you look at the feature release of NPM on their blog, it says with NPM, security is built in. Recently, NPM acquired a company which was focusing majorly on the security audits, and now they're offering all of these services to every single user. They give you and introduce you to a new command which says npm audit, and through this audit command, you can audit your packages that are helpful in your product and can see whether there is any known vulnerability in these packages or not. So very helpful. Everybody loved in the community and appreciated that what NPM did with the security in this release. Not only that, they have done a remarkable performance upgrade here. Remember, 17 times faster. It's almost like Apple stage figure, 17 times faster. They have done this optimization for continuous integration too, which says npm CI. You can run this command directly and can see or can plug it into your continuous integration. I haven't done it honestly as of now yet, but surely that's a great thing. They have some webhook management too, whole bunch of other things they have introduced. And it's a good idea that whenever there is a version release comes up, you should go on to the NPM blog, and at least it doesn't take much of the time to read this much. These guys are putting so much of effort. So just appreciate that, and also just take your time a little bit to read so that you are not just the person who is blindly using any version of NPM. You absolutely know what version consists, what things. These are good information that you should have. Quite a long video. But finally, we have covered a whole lot about the NPM that we have seen. I hope now you understand NPM in a much, much better way. If you have learned something from this video, let me know in the comment section. And if you like these kinds of more detailed crash course-y kind of video, let me know in the comment section. I'll come up with more of them. Make sure you hit that subscribe button too. And let's catch up in the next one.